Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says the game changer fighters. The first batch of 5 Indian Air Force Rafale jets recently landed at Ambala Air Force Base. 3 Rafale fighter jets are single-seater and 2 are twin-seater. In this backdrop, we need to draw a comparison between jets of Pakistan and China as it becomes very imperative because Indian Air Force fighters are most likely to encounter these machines. First, let us try to understand what are the various terms that we may encounter as we go ahead with our explanation. First, what is this multi-role combat fighter aircraft? Any aircraft for that matter, if it is executing multiple roles as it is performing its job, it is called as multi-role combat fighter aircraft. What do we mean by it? Let's suppose it is engaging in a combat. As it engages in a combat, if it includes air-to-air attack, air-to-surface attack, aerial reconnaissance, interception of an opposite aerial missile, suppression of enemy air defense, anti-ship strikes, as well as nuclear deterrence as well. In case any of these aircrafts have all these or any of these multiple capabilities, that is what is called as multiple role combat aircraft. Now let's understand what is the meaning of fourth and fifth generation. These terms aren't all that official. Countries and the aviation community do not have a universal definition for the same. So countries can also have a subjective interpretation of what this fourth and fifth generation aircrafts are, which we will try to understand eventually, taking the example of China as well. Now when it comes to the fourth generation aircraft, they basically have supersonic speeds. They also have limited stealth capability as well. So what do we mean by stealth capability? In case there are any of the aircraft which can actually evade the detection from a particular radar, that is what is called as stealth capabilities. Some of the fourth generation aircrafts have it, but they have limited role when it comes to the fourth generation. What is so advantageous when it comes to the fifth generation is that most of the fifth generation does have the stealth capabilities. So when there is a radar, they go evasive from it and they are not detectable by these radars. That is the most important advantage when it comes to the fifth generation. So this is what is actually being said, but there are also examples where radars are also capable of detecting their jets as well. Other elements that are also counted as the fifth generation aircraft also includes advanced systems, multi-role capabilities, and the ability to super cruise as well. So what is this super cruise capability? This is the ability of the fighter to fly at speeds more than 1 Mach, and kindly remember this will not require any of the afterburners. So what is these afterburners? The additional combustion component which is basically used to increase the thrust of the jet. So in these super cruise missiles you do not require afterburners, which might be required for speeds when it comes to the fourth generation. Now let's compare Rafale with what Pakistan has and what are the capabilities that China has. Pakistan has two important aircrafts. One is called as Chengdu JF-17. The other is supplied by United States of America, called as F-16 aircrafts. Both these aircrafts are fourth generation aircraft. And when it comes to China, they have the Chengdu J-20. And this Chengdu J-20 is a fifth generation aircraft. When we say China has the fifth generation aircraft, many Air Force experts actually question that particular claim. Let's understand why do they question whether China has fifth generation aircraft or not. There are two important answers for this particular question. One is the presence of what is called as canards. What are these canards? As you can see in this aircraft, you have two wings in the front. These are the important wings, but you also have a forward wing here. These forward wings are what is called as canards. Ideally, all these Air Force experts say that whenever there is a canard, it does not belong to the fifth generation aircraft. They also take the example of what is manufactured by United States of America, which is called as F-35. In case of F-35, they do not have the canards. In case of Russian fifth generation Su-57, they again do not have these canards. But why is canards present on China's J-20 is the first question. What is the most important issue? Canards are basically used to provide what is called as aircraft control as well as contribute to the lift, but this is not present in the fifth generation because they are easily detectable by the radars. One such example is that this particular J-20 was also previously detected by number of radars as well. That is not the same when it comes to the F-35 as well as Su-57. So first important question is whether this J-20 is a fifth generation aircraft or not. That is why we initially said that this is a subjective interpretation. There is no objective criteria amongst the aviation community as what is fifth generation, what is fourth generation, so on and so forth. Another important question is that J-20 claims that it is fifth generation, but majority of these fifth generation aircraft have a super cruise speed. That is not the same with respect to J-20. If J-20 has to go beyond a particular speed, it also requires afterburners, which is not the case with F-35 as well as Su-57. Now that we have understood all these technicalities, let's draw a comparison with all these aircraft with respect to Rafale. When it comes to Pakistan, it is all having the fourth generation aircraft. According to China, they say that it is a fifth generation aircraft, but according to all the established facts, Rafale is nothing but a 4.5 generation aircraft. We are not claiming that we have the fifth generation aircraft like China, but ours is a 4.5 generation aircraft. So it has some of the benefits from 4, but most of the benefits from 5 as well. Both Rafale and J-20 have the extreme fuel capacity, which means they would be able to carry as much fuel as possible, but it is not the same with respect to Chengdu JF-17. So in case of a clash or a comparison, Rafale has a much better capability of carrying fuel as their weight is comparatively on a larger level. And when it comes to its operations, the Rafale has been tested in multiple countries. It has been tested in Afghanistan, it has been tested in multiple other countries like Iraq, Syria, Libya and Mali. But when it comes to JF-17 as well as J-20, they are yet to be tested in the battlefields like Rafale. When it comes to aircraft operations, we have something called as the operational range. What is this operational range? This is nothing but the maximum distance the aircraft would be able to travel from the operating base. This is far superior for Rafale in comparison to J-20 as well as J-17 as well. Also, despite claims of J-20 being stealth, radars mounted on Indian Su-30 have also identified, they have been able to recognize, they have spotted J-20 in our earlier missions as well. So the claim of the Chinese that J-20 is far superior is questionable in the present scenario. What are the unique features when it comes to the Rafale aircraft? We have something called as the Meteor Beyond Visual Range air-to-air missile. So what does it do? This will basically target enemy aircraft for about 150 km away from its current position. How is this performed? That is with the help of spectra. With the help of spectra, the pilot of the Rafale would be able to understand if there are any threats that are emanating from the opposition forces. So the minute he is able to identify it, he would be able to take all the defense measures so that he would be able to neutralize the other target from the opposition forces. So he can also use the radar jammers, or he can also use the radar decoys to make sure that he applies the defensive mechanisms. And at the same time, Dassault also claims that it has what is called as active electronically scanned array radar system. Basically, when you look at the traditional system, what you have is the mechanical scanning radars, but now what we have is the electronic radars, which are far more effective in comparison to the traditional radars. They would also be able to track multiple targets in case there is any threat emanating from the opposition forces. So what is the significance of Rafale? We have seen what is happening across the border. The Chinese threat have been increasing. So what this will enhance is the operational capability to counter any of the Chinese threat. And at the same time, it would also provide effective deterrence against the Pakistani aggression. But there are some concerns as well. What are these concerns? When it comes to India, the squadron strength that is required is about 42 in case we have to fight a war on two fronts. One across China, the other across Pakistan. What we will also see is number of aircrafts will be completely eliminated. Why? Because their service period is expired and they have to be pushed outside the service. So in this particular backdrop, only induction of about 5 and about as many as 31 in the next 1 year will not serve any purpose. This ultimately marks the institutional depreciation when it comes to the government's activities. We knew for the fact that there were some aircraft which would be out of the service when it comes to the aircrafts. Why did we not bring these aircrafts into consideration 5 or 10 years before this particular operation being conducted is the first major question. Another important factor adding to this institutional instability is the bureaucratic red tape, and that means we are not able to take the decisions swiftly when it comes to the security of India. Looking at all these concerns, it also puts into another question in the minds of the Indians, that whether we would be able to withstand the pressure in case there is any war right now, because the squadron strength of Indian Air Force is at around 30-31. This is not enough, say few of the defense experts. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India to see good coffee output this year, says the planters. In this particular backdrop, we have to understand the coffee production in India. What are the types of coffee that we have? What are the various issues concerning the coffee production, and what needs to be done by the government in order to make sure that there are some measures to assist the farmers. First up, let's go with the historical factor. India is basically known for coffee production. It is also one among the largest coffee producers in the world. Which are the top 5 countries? It includes Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia and Ethiopia, and India is one among the top 10 coffee producing countries in the world. The country also accounts for about 3.14% of the global coffee production. Of the total coffee produced in India, about 70% is exported and about 30% is consumed domestically. When it comes to coffee production in India, the plantations in the southern part of India are known as the cradle of Indian coffee. Why? Because indigenously coffee was produced in Abyssinian plateau called as Ethiopia, and from there in 11th century it traveled all the way to Arabia, and after Arabia in 17th century it came to India, where this was carried from Arabia by Baba Budan and this was planted in Karnataka. Considering these historical factors, we can break the stage into two areas. One is what is called as traditional areas, the other is what is called as non-traditional areas of growing coffee. Which are these traditional areas? This includes Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The non-traditional areas include Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and the northeastern states. When it comes to the traditional areas, they contribute more than 70% when it comes to the coffee production, and Karnataka stands first in that, with the largest producing accounting for more than 70% of the total coffee, followed by Kerala as well as Tamil Nadu. Then we have the non-traditional areas comprising Andhra Pradesh, Orissa in the eastern Ghats of the country, followed by the northeastern states when it comes to the coffee production in India. Now let's look at important environmental factors. Coffee plant requires hot and humid conditions. It has a temperature that is required between 15 degrees centigrade to about 28 degrees centigrade, and at the same time the rainfall that is required is between 150 to 250 centimeters. Also remember that when it comes to the stagnant water, it is more harmful when it comes to the coffee production. So that is why most of these coffee productions happen within an elevation where the water does not get stagnated, but instead it flows down the elevation. So kindly remember, it is most of the times in the hill slope, as water should not be stagnating for the coffee production. When it comes to two important varieties, we have two important varieties called as Arabica, the other is Robusta. Arabica is far superior in quality. So when it comes to the quality, the superior one is Arabica and comparatively inferior one is what we call as Robusta. And when it comes to Arabica, it is usually grown in cooler conditions at elevated heights, and when it comes to Robusta, it is grown in warmer areas and in comparatively lower elevations. after looking into all these important parameters, we have to look what are the various issues surrounding the coffee production. When it comes to the coffee production of late, what we also witness is that the labor cost has been increasing considerably. As a result, farmers who are into this coffee production are also seeing profits that are being reduced. This will require high skills, and at the same time, because of the depletion of the labor, these farmers who are currently into the coffee production are also experiencing less of profits as well. Most of these plantations, since we also told that it will be down the hills and also will require certain elevation, are closely located to the forest areas. Since they are located near the forest areas, this will also mean that there could be a possibility of man animal conflict. Why? Because there could be an issue where these animals in the wild would not be able to find the fodder, they would not be able to find required food for themselves, and they venture into these plantations for their food, and this will ultimately mean there will be man animal conflict. As we initially discussed, for coffee plantation we require rainfall, but what is happening of late is loss of forest cover, and that is due to the activities of the human beings. There is excessive deforestation. This is leading to environmental degradation as well. So when there is environmental degradation, which means there is also a possibility of climate change infused by the human beings, and as a result, the rainfall which was once present in this area is considerably reducing over a period of time. Hence, all these plantations are suffering because of less rainfall. The cost of other inputs like the fertilizers, like the labor wages, the pesticides, and the fuel which is required for this particular industry is also increased substantially, leading to less profits when it comes to the coffee production. So what should the government do? The coffee board should be able to disperse all the necessary subsidies on time to enable growers to invest in the necessary infrastructure and mechanization so that the farmers are able to compete at the global level. And at the same time, growers have also been asking to include the coffee in the minimum support price. The government should have to reconsider this particular recommendation is another important way forward. Also remember, UPSC in the past has also asked questions as to which are the crops that are currently getting the minimum support price. So we have to know the same as well. So let's look into that particular chart. According to it, crops which are covered under MSP includes paddy, wheat, jowar, barley, bajra, ragi, maize, and it also includes pulses like arhar, gram, moong, lentil, and urad, and oil seeds like groundnut, rapeseed, soya bean, toria, sesame, sunflower seed, safflower, and ninja seed, and it also includes raw cotton, raw jute, copra, dehusked coconut, sugarcane, and Virginia flue-cured tobacco. Kindly remember, UPSC has asked such questions in the past, so you have to remember which are the crops that are currently coming under the fold of MSP. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about production linked incentive. Remember these three words: production, linked, and incentive. This is part of the national policy on electronics. According to this particular scheme, in case there is any of the manufacturing companies which are basically into manufacturing electronic components, they would be provided certain incentive. Incentive on what? For manufacturing locally produced electronic components on the basis of a base year, and that is 2019 and 20 for a period of about 5 years. What will happen is there will be all these manufacturing companies which will start manufacturing electronic components locally in India. This will be with the help of local manufacturers or their partners who are housed in India. Now after this is done, they have a particular base year. The sales does happen over a base year of 2019 and 20. For the next consecutive number of years, in case there is incremental sales in comparison to 2019 and 20, they would get incentives from the government of India which can range from a percentage of 4 to 6 percentage. Also kindly remember, these incentives are only provided for the R&D, it is provided for the plants, it is provided for the manufacturing. The same is not provided for land and for the building. So in case they have to establish a base for themselves in that particular state and they have to buy the land for the same or build a building, this is not provided under the incentive program. Only the research and development, machinery, plant and R&D is applicable for the incentives. What is the significance of this program? The world is infuriated by China for its activities with respect to the COVID-19. Because they were not able to give it on time, the world is suffering both on the economic front and also on the health front. So most of these countries are infuriated. As a result, they are asking their companies to come back. So what is the importance right now? Because they have to leave China, they are looking at alternative bases. One such base that they can look at is in the present scenario, and that is India. Why? Because companies like Apple's Foxconn, Petrogon, Westron, Lava and Micromax are looking to extract these maximum benefits from the production linked incentive. And at the same time, this will also provide employment opportunities as well. This will also make sure that there is massive number of companies and putting up infrastructure, and this will also bring in additional investment of about 11,000 crore in electronics and manufacturing. This is what we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about dhole conservation. Dholes play a very important role when it comes to predators in the forest ecosystem. But when it comes to India, we have tiger conservation, but the same conservation with respect to other predators is not in consideration. Another important factor from our preliminary examination is IUCN status of dhole is endangered. So what is the concern here? The concern is India does not have any targeted management plans for the scientific monitoring of all these important predators. We do look into consideration with respect to tigers, but when it comes to the other animals, we do not have any management policies or the conservation mechanisms. That is what this article all about. According to a new study that was conducted by the Wildlife Conservation Society India, the University of Florida, the Wildlife Conservation Trust and the National Center for Biological Studies found that Karnataka, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh rank high when it comes to the conservation of dhole, but other states have not been putting in efforts for the conservation. What is that these three states have done unique when it comes to the conservation? What they have been able to do is to consolidate all the forest habitats, increasing the prey density and also reducing the pressure on the forests. On the other side, we have states like Arunachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Telangana and Goa, which are not taking all these precautionary measures. So what are the recommendations given? We have to make sure that there is prey base when it comes to the predator like the dhole living in that particular region. So increase as much prey base and at the same time make sure that these forest areas are not diverted into a developmental plans. So clearing and providing all due clearances for infrastructure projects in the near future will have to be reduced is what this article all about. But from the preliminary examination point of view, kindly remember that dhole has an IUCN status of endangered. Now let's look into the next article. These three articles about new education policy, controversy in Rajasthan and contempt of court has been explained in the past 1 week. So we would also give you link in the description box. So kindly look into these videos. Now let's look into the preliminary practice question. Which of the following statements are correct about Bal Gangadhar Tilak? He is known as father of Indian unrest. He published 2 papers, Kesari in Marathi and Maharatha in English. In 1916, he concluded the Lucknow Pact with Jinnah. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Kindly remember, he was born as Keshav Gangadhar Tilak in 1856 in Ratnagiri in modern day Maharashtra. He is known as father of Indian unrest. He died in 1920 aged at 64, and this year marks the centenary of the death of the great Balagangadhar Tilak. But we have to know certain other facts as well. Tilak joined Congress in the year 18. After he joined the Congress, he was one of the important personalities who opposed the moderate ways and views when it comes to dealing with the British. So he had radical views, aggressive views against the rules of the British Empire. He was one of the first advocates of what is called as Swaraj or the self-rule. He in fact gave a slogan that Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. He was one of the proponents who always believed that boycott of British products is a must in India and Swadeshi products will have to be taken by the people of India. He was the criticizer of the British policies in India through his newspapers. One is Kesari, other is Maharatha in English. He criticized the tax policies, he criticized the brutality of the British, and at the same time he also asked the British to leave India so that we can self-govern ourselves. Along with Bipin Chandra Pal and Lala Lajpat Rai, he was also called Lal Bal Pal, trio of the extremist leaders. It is this that we have to know in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to the Coffee Board of India. It is a statutory organization under the administrative control of Ministry of Agriculture. Its head office is in Bengaluru. Which of the above statements are incorrect? It is asking for the incorrect statement. So the answer to this is one only. Why? Because it is not under the administrative control of Ministry of Agriculture, but instead it is under the control of Ministry of Commerce. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Barak, Arab world's first nuclear plant, was launched by which country? The answer to this is United Arab Emirates. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Kindly remember, United Arab Emirates has announced that it has started operations in the first 4 reactors, where in Barak, that is a power station which happens to be the first in the Arab world. What has United Arab Emirates done? It has already energy reserves, but what it has also done has made huge investments in developing alternative energy sources, and this is in the form of nuclear as well as solar energy as well. Barak, which basically means blessing in Arab, is a regional first, and Barak was built by a consortium led by Korea Electronic Power Corporation at a cost of about $24.4 billion. Now let's look into the next practice question. The most important fishing grounds of the world are found in the regions where warm and cold oceanic currents meet. This is a very straightforward question. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Will the induction of Rafale jets in Indian Air Force enhance the defense and deterrence capabilities of India? Critically examine. Discuss the key factors affecting the coffee production in India. What measures should the government take to boost the production? So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, come up with constructive criticism. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.